So, welcome to another episode of Gully to Gully. Two episodes in a week, just in time for Pakistan's second defeat in a week to India. Nothing surprising, even though the first 10 overs may have suggested otherwise. Um, but as the pessimists that Moin and I are, I think at that time as well, we were pretty pessimistic about Pakistan's chances. And of course, that I wouldn't say collapse in terms of wickets, but collapse in terms of run making between overs 11 and 17 that happened in Pakistan's innings. All of that. We'll get into all the details, the nitty gritties, the on field antics, the skirmishes on the field, so to speak, and what they mean. We'll get into all of that, the non handshakes. And I know there were a few comments in on our previous episode about that as well. Um, we have our views and we respect yours, but it is what it is. Anyways, let's focus on the cricket first, Moeed. A bit more of a fight versus the first game, but still the same old result.
No, yeah. I mean, obviously it was a marked improvement from the first game, but that's not saying much because I think that first game, Pakistan was probably at its worst. I haven't seen Pakistan that bad for the last 2 years, and that's saying a lot because they've been pretty bad for the last 2 years. So, look, I have to say, overs 10 to 14 or 10 to 15 rather explain why Pakistan still hasn't, despite everything that Mike Hessen will say, despite everything that we've been led to believe, Pakistan is still far behind the eight ball. But, and I've said this many times before, there is a lot of a skill deficit here, right? There's a massive skill deficit, but that skill deficit does not arise in a vacuum. That's what people don't understand. It's not just, it's just bad luck that we don't have good talent. I mean, there's no such thing. Okay, you can get very good luck like we had in the 90s where we had no system, where we had like geniuses with the ball come out. But like, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists because you've cultivated players and players have grown up thinking and believing a certain idea to be true, right? Which is averages are important. Getting runs is important. Having a stable base with wickets in hand is important. And it is very tough to unseat that thinking unless you make a concerted change to yourself, but also the management is consistent in that philosophy. Now, case in point, Hassan Nawaz strikes at 160. Okay, 158 after the India game, but 161 coming into the Asia Cup. And you drop him because he had a string of low scores to bring in Hussain Talat, who is much older. So don't none of this youth nonsense. And it strikes at 111, which is far lower than even Babar and Rizwan. So if you really want it, now the only thing I can think of, and you can't tell me that he's chosen on the basis of his military medium bowling, because he didn't even bowl, even though Shivam Dubey did so well. So it's clearly the batting, right? And you can't tell me, I thought maybe it's left hand, right hand, but you actually during the game reminded me that for once we've got probably an equal number of left-handed hitters as right. So it could only have been because they wanted someone who they felt was a bit more mature and could preserve his wicket. Well, then what's Babar Azam doing in the wings then? What's Rizwan doing? I mean, there's no question Babar is better than Hussain Talat for that role, right? So I was actually very disappointed. I thought that was a sign of real defensiveness. It's a sign of you almost giving up slightly before the game started. In fact, Cricinfo got it wrong. If you read Cricinfo on the commentary, they said Mohammad Nawaz was out. And I was actually just heading home at the time. And I was like, okay, I can see that. And then I was like, what? Like Hassan Nawaz? Here's a guy who can actually... And so now what have you told your management or your squad? You've told your squad that actually averages matter. Actually, there are consequences to being way too aggressive and over the top, right? So then how are you going to actually cultivate this change? That's the problem.
Yeah.
And overs 11 to 15 are the reason you lost the game. Okay? Well, one of the two reasons you lost the game, right? but it was the reason why, like, But look, I know 15 runs more. I think like India had an over to spare. And in truth, India took it a bit slow in the middle because they knew they could, right, to get their eye in a little when they lost a couple of wickets. But I still think if you added 15 to 190, I think 190 would have been quite competitive. There is a psychological side of things that may have come into it. It may not have been a different result, but it could have been competitive. And that's where we lose each and every time.
Yeah. Look, I think the stat was 38 runs between overs 11 and 17 for 3 wickets. So even if you make that 60, that's 20 more runs, 193, 195. I mean, even 16, 7 overs is average, below average, I guess, maybe 20s, especially after that platform, right? I think the Hussain Talat thing, that was just purely a reaction to what happened in the first match where they collapsed and they wanted someone just in case the team collapsed to stop the bleeding, so to speak. But then what I really didn't understand is after the start that you had, okay, fine, you lost Saim Ayub and a couple of other wickets. Why did you have Hussain Talat, who played that role, Agha Salman coming in, um, who also didn't do much. Okay, on paper, he was 17 of 13 towards the end, but his start was also run a ball. Nawaz doing whatever the hell he was doing. So I didn't get like in that passage of play, why would you have like two or three of them doing the same thing? Um, Maybe there was a case of, as it's happened in 2023 World Cup, it happened in the Champions Trophy, it happened in the previous T20 where Pakistan have sort of recovered to a decent position and have just collapsed. So maybe they were trying to thinking, okay, maybe 170 is what they want and they just need to, once lost Saim Ayub, they're like, okay, let's not collapse again and get out to Kuldeep Yadav, in a cluster. And maybe 170 is enough because I remember in the 2023 World Cup match, I mean, they were thought maybe they could get to 300, 310, and then they collapsed and got out for 190, right? So maybe there was something like that. It's the same thing in the Champions Trophy where they, at one point, at 150 for two, they thought they could get to 270, 280, and then they collapsed. So maybe there was that thinking there, but in their minds, they thought, okay, 170 would be a good score. And I mean, it wasn't, but maybe that's what they were thinking. And that's why
I
in
completely
those middle overs. But again, it doesn't make sense. And then you
no,
ended up
that can
wasting
only be that.
Shaheen and then you ended up wasting Haris and Shaheen. Okay, Haris, whatever, but Shaheen,
I know you don't like him. It's very obvious. Uh,
yeah. I mean, like, at the end, the Fahim did well. He did 20 of 8. Like, what more do you want from the guy, right? Okay, like, India dropped like a ton of chances, and Pakistan should probably been out for 140 had they taken their chances. But, Fahim did what he had to do. He had
no,
a six of
and look,
Bumrah.
before we get into the lower order, right? Sort of bailing out, and he bailed us out there. Okay, like if
Yeah,
anything less than 150, don't even bother coming out to field,
yeah,
right? So I just want to complete the point I was making. The best example of why Pakistan is still so ingrained in this wickets in hand. Wasim Akram on commentary, the number of times he said wickets in hand after that 93 run, like, when we were 93 runs after 10 overs, he like, wickets in hand. Now they just have to make sure they don't lose the plot from here, like they've done before, wickets in hand of this. And you're like, here's somebody who's actually, and in another breath, he's saying Pakistan need to have more intent and all, but it's almost as if our autopilot regresses to, it just gravitates back to that age old thinking. And that's exactly it. It was the scars of prior collapses that caused us to believe that by going a certain way, we risk getting
yeah,
collapsed again. And we rather give ourselves a bit of a sniff and aim to, and actually I think they were still aiming for 180 plus, but they thought, you know what, let's just consolidate for a couple of overs and then we can go again. But what people don't understand is T20, more than any other form of the game, is all about momentum. You lose the momentum, the game's gone, right? It's
yeah,
not like ODI where you can gain it back, whatever. No, it's gone, right? So the minute you let 2-3 overs drift away, that's almost what 3 out of 20, right? It drifts away. you allow the Indian bowlers to get their lengths in, their line and lengths, figure out how to bowl, just calm themselves a little, get the field placements right. Most importantly, getting line and length right. Because they know, okay, this is our chance to just hold it up. And that creates pressure on either you or your next few batsmen to come in to actually then make it count. Like Reem Ashraf, there was no guarantee that he was going to score 20 away. Let's be real here. And we would have ended up with less than 160. And I thought that would have been an absolute crime. And now, this, we've talked about if you just think about the middle order, right? Now, why did three anchors come in one after the other? Okay, Nawaz, I don't call him an anchor. I don't call him a hitter. I don't call him anything. People have talked a lot about how talented he is in the nets. But
Match
if
winner.
there was, he's a match winner in the nets. Exactly, not in the match. But my point is, that I think he's shown time and again. Wasim Akram said it on air, the way he got out. And literally, when he got out, when he walked to Salman Agha, he's like, out, out. And he could tell it was as if a child had just done something wrong and just been caught out. Like, you know, I'm going to be punished. I'm really sorry, And that's what happened, right? And Wasim Akram said it on air. He said, sometimes there's some things you can't teach. Game awareness is one of them. He's done it so many times where he's lost us games, bowling a wide, messing up when you needed 3 of 2 against a team like Zimbabwe. I can think of so many where and yesterday. But Pakistan, like, okay, I don't call him an anchor, but why was that batting order the way it was? And the only way I make sense of it was the right left hand combination that they wanted to keep going with, which I thought was them overthinking it a lot. Like,
Yeah. It doesn't matter. It didn't make sense anymore. But like, okay, fine. That Akshar Patel was the only reason why, but he only bowled 1 over. Kuldeep is probably more difficult for a left-hander to face anyway. So it really didn't make sense. Speaking of which, I know there were 2 deliveries in 1 over. Salman Agha well left of Kuldeep
do you
Yadav. I don't
remember?
know
Do you
what he
remember?
was doing. I mean, I know it was misjudgment on his part, but honestly, you're an international player. How can you misjudge the line of a ball that bad that
And one of them
and
was so not a wide. Like, it was like so inside.
both
I
of them
don't.
weren't wides. It was so bad. It was so awful. Like even trying to dab it for a single or something, right? But just leaving it. How can you be so hopelessly clueless about where you're standing?
But
Anyways,
this is
that's a different thing.
no, no. But
Uh,
but I do think it's a really, really important point because I thought if you really wanted to send a lefty in when Hussain Talat got out, firstly, I think Salman Agha, if he's captain, he can't be sending himself at number 6. Okay, if you're scared you just lost SMU, Salman Agha comes in. End off. Okay, you've got Sabzada Farhan the other end. End off. That's your cue to come in.
we need to come on to him as well, by the way. The fraud innings that he played.
I know, yeah. Farhan, yeah, I know what you're gonna say about him, but just take a step back, right? Salman Agha should have come in sooner, or and this is something I've always believed in. I believe sometimes these tail enders, where they call China Freedom all rounders, bowling all rounders, play with a lot less pressure because less is expected of them. So I'm a big believer in if you've really got a lot of momentum and you don't mind giving away a free wicket, if you really need to send a left-hander in, just send China Freedom. Just what's the word? Just India won't expect it. He'll maybe hit 1 or 2 sixes. It'll be without any pressure. And if he gets out, you're not going to feel that bad because he's not one of your frontline batters anyway. So it's what I call a free wicket for someone who keeps it simple and doesn't overcomplicate. Because batting is all about overcomplicating. It's all about
Especially
emotion.
after the start you've had, yeah. After the start you've had,
Yeah, yeah,
you could
yeah.
have done.
Only after the start, right? Batting is all about overcomplicating and if there's someone there like a tail,
Yeah.
like a bowling all round who keeps it simple, just go, right? But I don't know, like that was disappointing. But speaking of Saibzada Farhan, right? I let you say what you wanted to say. I said say
I
that
mean, it was a typical Babar Azam innings, right?
it is, it
A
is, it
quick
is
start in the power play, a lot of boundaries, but a lot of dot balls. And despite all his hitting, he got to 50 of 34, which is
exactly,
okay, right? Despite all
exactly.
his fantastic hitting. And then after that, he got 58 of 48, something like that, like 7 of 12 balls to after he got to his
In
50.
fairness, he didn't get
And that,
strikes for a couple of
yeah, but still,
overs.
I mean, he went at less than 100.
No, completely. And also, like, let's be honest, like, I think he had like 4 6. was it 4 sixes or something
Yeah.
like that? Initially, out in a score of 35 before he got to 50. I'm saying at 35, I think they had a stat up. And you had like 4 sixes, but then that shows you how many singles he ran, right? And he ran
And
a
he was
couple of
dropped from
fast
zero.
twos, and he was dropped to zero. He ran a couple of twos as well, so you can just
Mm.
add the number of like count the number of dot balls.
Yeah.
It's a problem. It's a problem with Pakistan, and when Babar Azam's replacement is doing it, it begs a lot of questions. Now, I'm not doubting he's got a six hitting ability that Babar Azam does not have. Not doubting
Yeah.
that. But what I'm saying is, again, you need to be consistent in your sort of messaging, right? Because this has a much longer term implication, right? I thought Hassan Nawaz, like I personally think he needs to come back. I'd be devastated if Hussain Talat gets another game. Or maybe take out Mohammad Nawaz if you're not going to bowl him. But I think they're going to keep him in because they have a love affair with him. But the point is they need to get Hassan Nawaz in. You cannot set a precedent. I mean, Cricinfo is writing articles about him, the arrival of Hassan Nawaz. And here, like,
There's a stat is really clicking for some website as one of those, captions or like you see on social media. The most T20I sixes in the year. He's probably played more games than anybody else, but Hassan Nawaz, I think 35 sixes, T20Is this year, number one. For all his inconsistencies, we've also been critical of him, but I think the role that he has now, and again, this new brand of cricket that they want to play, he has to be part of that team.
he
I
has to be.
just don't get
I mean,
it.
there's no way. There's no
Yeah,
way.
I
I mean,
know
you
I've
can't.
talked about how he looks ugly and sometimes he looks the way he gets out. But you need him exactly for a situation like these. You can't pick players expecting or based on what you think might be the worst case scenario, right? You pick a team based on what is the best case
Exactly.
scenario, and not what will happen if you lose 3 wickets and then you have an anchor coming in, right? That's not why
And
you
you
pick a
can't
team.
have this sort of instance where you wonder how good this guy would be if he played against the bigger sides, and how
Yeah,
he'll do, and then not play him when you play against the bigger sides, and just have him keep playing against the UAE and everybody, right? It's just not right, right? If you really want to test a guy's mettle, give him that big match exposure. So what did he fail once, dude? Like, I mean, it's absurd. You're so yeah. The I think it's the
and
worst
then
case thinking that came into things.
the other thing, like you have M Nawaz, right? He ended up playing as a pure batter. Again, that doesn't make sense. Like,
No, that absolutely does. Now I know there was a left-handers batting in India, which is why they were
yeah,
scared to
but I
bring him
mean,
on. But you know that, right? You know, in their top four, they've got two lefties in there. You know that he's not good enough to play as a, and that's the point I was making to you earlier. But he's not good enough to be a specialist batter, right?
and when
He's
when
not.
they're donking them all over the place, Siam's gone for like 30 and three or whatever. Abraj got hit. You might as well bring him on and try him for one over, right? And even Fahim Ashrafi came on in the 11th, 12th over.
That was a big mistake. Because this is probably one of the only advantages of bowling second, where you know which kind of bowlers did well, right? Shivam Dubey. So when I saw Dubey do so well, I was like, okay, 100% Fahim is going to have a bigger role to play with the old ball. I mean, he came in when the game was done, right? Let's be honest, right? And
Yeah.
now there were instances. Now Haris Rauf. I thought he had a chance of getting Abhishek out when he was bowling. Oh, anyways, we'll get into bowling. There's a lot to say about the bowling, but the one last point I want to make about the batting was Fakhar Zaman, and that look. I don't know what you think, and I'm trying to be as objective as possible here, but that was 100% to me a bum ball.
Um, I've seen them given, and I can understand why the umpire made that decision because from the angle that he had, you could see because of it's difficult. His gloves were white and they were kind of like the ball was camouflaged and not to get too technical, but you could see like the fingers were technically under the ball. Now you can argue like half the ball was still touching the ground, but then half the ball was under like above the like his fingers were
No,
underneath
but
half the
that's
ball.
not out, isn't it? I'm sorry, I don't think the term is
Technically,
bum ball. I apologize. It's not bum ball.
yeah,
What I mean is it bounce. But like,
yeah.
yeah, but
It's
that's not
yeah.
out,
I
is it?
think
If it's half half, if it
it,
hits. if any part of the ball hits the ground, that means you don't have control.
I think the third umpire was the same guy who gave like 3 decisions against Pakistan in the previous game and were overturned, and then got hit by a ball in the previous match between Pakistan and UAE,
Oh
when
yeah,
someone
that
threw.
guy was something. I mean, he's the
So I
same
think it was
guy
the
who
same
didn't
third
give.
umpire.
He's the same guy who didn't give those Muhammad Amir LBWs out, which were completely cold. You remember? But no,
Yeah, and then Asia Cup
but
80 or game, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but the thing, no, but the same guy. You may have said this, but the same guy who we gave a big happy birthday thing to. Do you see on Pakistan's cricket team's Facebook
Oh,
page?
really?
They did a big
No.
happy birthday to the guy. I'm like, nothing works. Nothing works. Okay, but still at the same time. But
But
no, I would say
I think the decision was made very quickly with very little.
that's the problem.
I mean, there was only one angle that they could go off, and again,
But there's a big
it's an unwritten rule. Benefit of the doubt
benefit
goes
of
to the
doubt
batter.
goes to the batter, especially when there's
Yeah.
no soft signal, right?
But what I will say to play devil's advocate here, I think it was not that obvious a not out as Makar Yunus made it seem on commentary. He went absolutely berserk.
I don't know. I thought
But
it
I
was
think I can
pretty.
understand why he was saying that. I think there were wider implications of what he was trying to say, and but um,
I missed that.
I mean, part
What was he saying?
I think it was him and Ravi Shastri on commentary together. Um, just to belabor the point that I think most of the, anyways, that's a different point. He was saying, yeah, he was like, this is not out. I don't know how can the umpire make this decision. It definitely bounced before. Clearly, you can see it bouncing. Um, and Ravi Shastri was being more diplomatic. He's like, yeah, well, umpire had this angle and that angle, and he was very quick to make the decision, blah, blah, blah.
Anyway,
But
benefit
yeah,
that goes to batter, and I don't think it's an unspoken rule. It's as spoken a rule as it gets. Now, bowling, right?
unwritten rule.
Look,
Yeah, look, bowling, but the bowling we have to cover, I guess, in unison with India's batting, right? And look, I mean, for purely cricketing perspective, I mean, phenomenal batting, both Gill and Abhishek Sharma. And the guy, Abhishek Sharma, for all his flair and amazing shots and stuff, the guy's a very thinking cricketer, right? Like the first ball that Shaheen bowled, the previous game, he knows Shaheen's first ball is going full and straight. He walked down the track. This time he knew because he walked down, he's probably going to bounce him, um, and this is where Shaheen's cricketing brain comes into it, right? I mean, if you know you're going to bowl a bouncer, why do you have fine leg up in the circle for the
exactly.
first ball?
No, so I think it was they tried to do a double bluff, right? But
I
it
mean,
doesn't work, right? I completely agree. He knew that he was going to bowl. Look, I don't fault the thinking. I think Shine Afidi, I think he was the big criticism of Shine Afidi. He didn't bowl enough bounces in the first game, right? When it was clear what they were doing, they were trying to negate the swing, come pull it because he always tries pulling straight. That's why I've always called him a one-trick pony. Now here it is. He bowled short, the right idea, well directed, but two problems. One, field placements aren't right. Two, right? And that's also a function of being too cute, right? If you want to double bluff. And two, let's be honest, right? The batter probably knows you better than you know yourself. You could tell that he was waiting. His weight was a bit tilted towards his back foot. It was coming. But the problem was not that. Okay, fine. He won that little battle. The problem was what happened after. Shaheen Afridi always goes in, and I think this is probably the thing we've been saying ever since our earlier videos. Pakistan struggle with a plan B. There's no plan B. When all their key bowlers get hit, there's no plan B. But even if you bring it down to the individual, Shaheen Afridi himself doesn't have a plan B. He's so sure, okay, I'm just going to bounce him. Okay, it's done. But what happens if that doesn't happen? Shaheen Afridi was clueless. He can't think when he's getting taken to the cleaners, and that's a problem, right? He is such an average bowler sometimes, right? Oman's left arm fast bowler gave so much more trouble to India, and there's no reason, right, why Shaheen Afridi couldn't have done that. I was looking at his pace was up sometimes when he was bowling quick, but just
yeah.
he couldn't comprehend that Abhishek had got his number and he was tonking him to all corners. That it just ended up being Shaheen Afridi just closing his eyes and just trying to bowl and just hope it lands in the right area. And as a strike bowler, I'm sorry, it's just not good enough.
Yeah. Look, I completely agree. I don't think there's, after a while, I think when you get docked all around the park, I don't think there's much more you can do. So I think it was a bit of that. And Shine is, we've known that he's always had this ability where he, well, I wouldn't say ability, but he always has this knack when he's getting hit for runs, he loses the plot. It's happened countless times. So he needs that wicket in the first over. And if he doesn't get that, then, but for example, on the contrary, I think Haris Rauf is someone who did really well. I think after going for 12, 15, 13 in the first over, he ended up going for 24, 25 in his
Yeah.
four overs in the end. And he's done that quite often. I mean, it wasn't his fault again. He's not a power play bowler. He was brought in to bowl in the power play, and he was had to go for runs. Um, was it of his bowling or was it Shine's bowling where they? It was a tough chance that I think it was Nawaz who dropped it. Of course, Nawaz. When I think it was Abhishek Sharma to pull it.
No. So Abhishek Sharma, Sahibzada Farhan dropped him.
No, that was the one, the catch at the boundary.
Oh, isn't that what you're talking about?
No, there was one in the inner circle. I think it just went. It was similar to the catch he took
Mohammad
in the
Nawaz.
UAE
Mohammad
match.
Nawaz.
Yeah, just over the inner
Shaheen
circle.
Afridi was bowling. That was Shaheen Afridi.
Okay, yeah. So
So that
you
was
know, you
actually
never know
one of
if
the
it.
few Shaheen Afridi off cutters or leg cutters that he had bowled. Leg cutter,
Yeah,
actually, it was.
yeah,
And then it just bounced up. Of course, Mohammad Nawaz can't do anything because he doesn't have the game awareness. And actually the commentators called he was wrong footed. He was just not in the right
yeah,
place. Now, um,
yeah,
Sahibzada Farhan's was a very unfortunate drop catch. I don't think it was as tough as it looked. But then again, we also got lucky the other way around. So it all evens out, right? Abhishek Sharma
yeah,
himself dropped. Whose bowling was that? I think it was Abrar's bowling.
yeah. I think it
Yeah,
was
but
abroad.
anyways, but getting on Haris Rauf, actually, his most impressive over, I thought, was, even though he got it, was over number two. Because, over number three, obviously, he had two new batters there, but over number two was really. No, actually, over number three was when he got Sky out, but over number two, what happened was he was one of very few who actually started bowling around the wicket to Abhishek. Okay, Abhishek loves width. He just slashes, especially in the power play. I don't know why even Fahim Ashraf, why he didn't bowl more around the wicket against Abhishek. Haris Rauf cramped him up. And it wasn't just pace, it was also the absence of pace, the surprise. And Abhishek was struggling, right? He was trying to go down the wicket and all. Look, I mean, look, I'm a big believer in sportsmanship and stuff, but there's no harm in being a bit aggressive. And I thought it was the right ploy to be aggressive with Abhishek because Abhishek is a bit inexperienced. He may let it get to his head. And you saw after he got told that, he tried to hit the next ball. He came down the wicket and it went up in the air. Do you remember? It went up in the air over
Yeah,
point, but it landed safely. That's all good tactics, right? I mean, best teams in the world do that. And I thought Haris had a real chance. But they took Haris out of the attack because they wanted to save him for Sky. Right? That's why. Because Sky struggles, the low order struggles. Problem is, they probably want to win a match, right? So
yeah,
I'm not sure whether that was the right call. I thought Haris should have, because there was a gap before he was brought in for his third and fourth overs. That's something I question. And of course, the big question is Fahim Ashraf, right? I mean, why wasn't he brought in earlier, right? And when he did come on, I thought he was very good against Shubman Gill. He was very good, but against Abhishek Sharma, I would have preferred him if he bowled around the wicket, right? That these were the 2 points that I had, points of contention. Even though I thought they bowled very well, I thought the captaincy. I know Samaga's a new captain, but you've got to learn fast, right? Especially in T20 cricket, like yes, you only have three fast bowlers, but there's no point leaving them for over 17, 18, 19 when the game is done and dusted then. There is absolutely there's no bowling a part-timer in the first 6 overs. When yes, I know he's got the most number of wickets. I understand that. But when he's got Taunt in his first over his first 2 overs, get the hint, man. He's a part-timer. Part-timer also means some days good, some days not so good. Right? And you're playing with 7 bowlers, including yourself, for God's sake, right? I would have liked to see more of himself. If he's a right arm
yeah,
off spinner, he was the lone spinner when Pakistan toured Australia, and he held his own, right? He bowls it, he flights it up, he bowls it slower in the air, which is exactly kind of what they wanted here. But anyways,
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
Pakistan, you struggle when your two best bowlers on paper, Shaheen Afridi and your best bowler in terms of this tournament, Abrar, go at like over 10 runs and over. There's no hope.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think Brad had all the mystery batted out of him in this game. Um, and yeah, I just didn't get why they gave Simon the third over. He might as well have tried Nawaz, only because Simon got 2 wickets in the previous game, but very different conditions, match situation very different. Yeah, it just did not make sense. It's almost as if they're trying to like justify his place in the team. They're like, okay, fine, maybe if you take a wicket here, we'll still keep you in the team because you flopped in batting. Um, so yeah, but at the end of the day, look, I mean, for whatever we say, I mean, their batting is top quality, right? And that's really the difference. Pakistan played really well in the first 10 overs, but they were going at eights and nines and over. Right? They had one over where they hit a couple of boundaries, maybe one boundary, and then a few singles here. And then you have 8 or 9 and over, and then that's what Pakistan were doing. And for us, that was like really good. Whereas on the other hand, these guys are going 4, 6, 6, 4, 12, 14, 16 and over. What was it, 90 or something in 8 overs? So that's the difference, right? In the sheer magnitude of runs, where it's eights and nines versus 12s and 13s, and that really is
but
the big difference.
but let's just speak a bit about the quality, right? Because even within India, Abhishek and Shubman were far above the others. Now I know it's easier to get your eye in when the ball's coming onto the bat nicely with a new ball.
Yeah,
But still, you saw when new batters were at the crease, it wasn't an easy pitch to bat
yeah,
on, right? For the new batter to get set and get his eye in. And
yeah,
that makes you really value Abhishek and Shubman even more because you realize that actually, had that partnership not flourished in the way that it did, I think it would have been a much closer game, right? We thought, like, you may think that, oh no, okay, if they didn't do it, someone else would step up and do it, right? If they're like 60 for one instead of 100 for one or 110 for one, if it's 60 for one, someone else will come because they'll keep going. But actually, it might not have. One brings two.
yeah,
There was a small fluff, whether you call it a jitter or a slight, flutter, whatever you want to call it. There was a time I thought when Sky got out that India, even a couple of Indian fans were like, oh, could suddenly, we've seen it before. We've seen it with Pakistan in New York. One brings two. Now, I know the quality is much different, but on this wicket, I definitely believe that if Shaheen had a better day or Abrar had a better day, maybe the result would have been the same, but it would have got a bit tense. And that's the problem with Pakistan. There are too many people who aren't at their best. And
yeah,
if you have like 2 3 people doing really well in patches but not consistently, you'll never ever win big
yeah,
games, right? uh, uh,
yeah,
and I hope it, Salman learns fast because I definitely think Abrar, they could have tried certain things against Abrar that he was struggling with, and they certainly could have brought bowlers you expected to be effective on sooner. Again, it's a case of Pakistan got it wrong by going with so many spinners in the first game, right? Pakistan didn't play to their strengths. Just because others are doing it doesn't mean you do it.
yeah,
And then they come in with 3 fast bowlers, and then they don't really bowl them and let your spinners bowl like 3 4 overs up front. I mean, what's that saying? Like, either if you want to play to your strengths, go and play to your strengths
yeah,
and just finish it off, right? Partly the problem is I think Haris is not a power play bowler, but then Fahim is,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Try Fahim. Try
especially
him.
after
Why
that
not?
first over when Simon you've got absolutely smothered against the bowler who he was backing himself to do well against. Right, Shubman Gill
Yeah,
sometimes gets that mystery leg spin is a problem for him. I mean, he put you in your place. Like, what are you
yeah,
waiting for? Anyways, look, there's many ways we can say it, but ultimately the fact remains the same. The quality is extremely divergent. So much so that Sky thought it's wise to take a question out of turn and address it. Did you hear that? The question was, um, do you think the standard of Pakistan improved? And he was like, oh, why do you keep asking about this rivalry? It's not rivalry anymore. I'm like, dude, the question wasn't about rivalry. Right? Like, and he's like, oh, yeah, rivalry standard, same thing. Look, and I thought that was a bit of cockiness. Okay, and I'm going to say
yeah,
this, like, it was a bit cocky. Now,
yeah,
I don't mind a bit of cockiness, but I think if you're really wanting to make a point and answer a question that hasn't been asked, that is a sign of desperation that is unbecoming of the winning captain. That's my take on the matter. Okay. Absolutely, there's no competition. India are far miles ahead of
Yeah.
Pakistan. There was a time when Pakistan was miles ahead of India, although I would say that India's team still had Sachin, Mohammad Azharuddin, Javed. I was still a pretty
Yeah.
decent team. It's not like like Salman Agha, Mohammad Nawaz, whatever.
Yeah.
So no
Yeah, I
question.
mean, that was still a worst case. It was a 60-40 game, right? Where India still would always, and they would
A
always
little
come
more
up
than that, I
and
think,
perform.
depending on the conditions. But yes,
Yeah.
and very
Whereas
toss
these guys
dependent.
here,
Yeah.
whereas now it's absolutely like 95-5, if anything.
If any,
But,
right?
but
No, no, I mean,
I get the point he was trying to make, but the fact that he made that point also puts everything else into perspective, as if, like all the other actions and all the, stuff that's been going around, it just puts that into perspective, as if that everything that is being done, like we discussed in previous episode, is being deliberately done to put a bad spin on things, right? And because he made that comment, he went out of the way to make that
out
comment. It
of
just
turn.
shows,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
yeah.
At the end of the day, look, I mean, facts are facts. Pakistan is still 73-58 ahead in ODIs and 12-9 ahead in Test matches. So, I
Now,
don't think that.
now the
So,
astute
I mean,
amongst those. No, no.
so
Let's address the fact that those stats are skewed a bit by the fact that the times when India have been
irrelevant.
dominant at the moment, we don't play any bilateral cricket, right? If we did, it'd be different. I know. No, I'm on the
His
same
his
team as
point
you.
was, oh, if the score is 7-7 or 7-1 or whatever, the rivalry is not there, right? Well, I mean, 53-58 is quite a wide gap, right? So I agree,
No,
it's not a rivalry.
73-58. I think it's 73-58. And you
Yeah,
can thank the Sharjah games for that, the 90 Sharjah games, those pointless Sharjah games for so many years. No, no, but you're so
yeah,
right. It's there. I will just look. I think it would be unfair of us to not touch on the antics that Pakistan put up with,
yeah,
right? First and foremost, Abhishek made a statement saying, I don't know why they were coming at us. I don't like it at all. And I gave him the best medicine. I get it. He didn't like it. He gave the best medicine. But to say that I didn't like it at all, I mean, like, who cares whether you like it or not? I thought, like, even the best teams in the world, but which Pakistan isn't, but like, think of Australia, they used to do this when a new batter would come, new relatively inexperienced batter would be there. They would really try to, intimidate. And I thought that was a good ploy, right? They were hoping, and you saw Abhishek was affected. He would sometimes try and overhit the next ball and play into Pakistan's hands. No issues there. You may not like it, but don't say that it was unheard of and unsportsmanlike or
yeah. Look,
so out of the realms of what's expected, so
I'm going to make a
unbelievable
very
on a cricket pitch.
controversial comment here, and I know I'll probably get cancelled by some or most of our viewers for saying this, but um, the way the cricketing world is now, especially with IPL and even in international cricket, and excluding Pakistan for obvious reasons, I don't think, especially when it comes to India, even the opposition does this to them. Maybe in test matches in that BGT series, it happened, maybe it happened once or twice. But now everything is so friendly, and maybe people have hidden agendas of trying to get IPL contracts so they don't get on the wrong side of some of these players and stuff. So you don't see what happened, in the 2000s where Australia, India, all of that. That doesn't happen anymore, especially against India. And that is something I've observed, and I might be proven wrong. Someone will send a clip of some random sledging going on in a game, and then so for these guys, new guys coming in, they haven't had that, right? Maybe in IPL it happens, but it's serious cricket, but it's not serious cricket, right? So when someone comes to them and does it to them in their own language as well, I think that makes a big difference, right? So for him to be, I wouldn't say rattled, but for him it is. I can understand why he reacted the way he did, because it's not something that he would have
He's not
expected.
used to it. He's not used to it. But
Yeah,
he's watched enough cricket to know that it's not so unbelievable
yeah,
on a cricket
yeah.
pitch, right? Especially in a heated
Yeah.
game. So I mean, I get it.
So
Now, but the
yeah,
other thing was, so he should get it as well. But then look, there were antics. right, that were pointing to certain events that happen off the field. Now, look,
Yeah.
let's be clear here. I can say with utmost certainty, with my credibility on the line and yours, that Pakistan and Haris Rauf would not have engaged in those acts had India not taken that ultra draconian aggressive stance of not shaking hands. I can say that with absolute certainty. I think I had a comment.
I don't think it's not just shaking hands, but also the comments that Sky made after the match and all the whole, shebang
The
around. I think
bang.
it was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
whole context of,
You're right. You're right. The
and I'll
presentation.
say, if India didn't politicize this game, Pakistan would have not done anything. There it is. I've said it. Make of that what you will. If Sky and whatever, they had not made the comments that they did in the previous game and done the whole thing, Pakistan
Oh,
wouldn't have
oh,
done it.
sorry. You're referring to the post-match presentation when he said what he said last game.
Yeah, and the whole, I mean, and the whole handshake thing. I mean, that is all part of the antics, right? So if you've done all of that, then if the opposition does the same thing, then you got to take it, right? I know all these Indian experts are saying, "Oh, how can Sai Zafran do a celebration? How can Haris do what
Yeah,
he
that's
did?"
the other one. How did he do the
Well,
celebration? I mean,
I mean,
and by the
and
way,
then
they
there's
could
this
rewind
Dhoni
the
picture
clock.
going around, right?
Yes, Dhoni picture going around. There's even the Asif Ali picture. Do you remember with after those 4 sixes and he goes, no one cared. Goes bam bam. No one cared, dude. Like, okay, like yes,
Yeah.
is it good for kids? Maybe not, but like equally, you know, not shaking hands sets a bad precedent for young impressionable kids watching, right? I mean, you're teaching them that that is normal behavior. So because I saw some memes about how this is anti, like, like this should be like kid friendly television, like, people like pretending to shoot, it's crazy. I'm like, not shaking hands teaches them bad behaviors, and it actually normalizes bad behaviors, right? Normalizes it. So I think that's terrible when you have a responsibility. But I think your point was the same as mine. So I was saying that basically I can guarantee that Pakistan would not have done anything had India not adopted that stance of not shaking hands, as well as whatever all the statements they made off the field, right? I mean, this was only a retaliation. Now, another point is, if India were not this much better than Pakistan, would they have been this bullish? Maybe not, right? But and look, I think some people in our comments mentioned the fact that like Fahim, Ashraf, and others made a few tough, not tough, but like a few tweets that they felt crossed the line a little after the conflict. Well, I can tell you, there were quite a few on the other side as well. Look, I am not condoning it. I think it's wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right. I mean, it is. I think sports people have a duty of care that extends beyond nationalism, right? You are athletes, you are professional athletes and sports people, and you need to uphold that spirit far beyond anything. Okay, you can have all the beliefs and opinions you want, but you should be more exercise greater responsibility and restraint when you are using public social media platforms. Now, you can still articulate your views. There's nothing wrong with having an opinion that others may disagree with. But the issue is the way in which you do it, right? If you do it in a very gung ho, jingoistic way, you're inciting more issues than you are solving them, right? It's then your intentions are not that, oh, I want to just express an opinion. It's, I want to express an opinion with the intention of inciting and getting other people to share in that jingoism. So it's wrong on both ends, but unfortunately, it wasn't one sided. Look, I I criticized Pakistan when they didn't come out to, like, they didn't leave the team hotel against the UAE. I thought this whole Andy Pycroft was a bit silly because we ended up looking weak. We didn't get what we wanted, and then we went and played, right? It was a bit silly. But having said that, I also think India yesterday were also a bit silly because you won the game. You posted on Instagram, you talk, we win. Basically saying we let our performance do the talking. If that were the case, then just don't do any other talking, right? Let your performance would be way more impactful had you not actually talked. You yourself are talking out of turn to make statements, and then are saying that actually words don't matter. It's all about performance. So I mean, it's a bit of, I think, well, anyways, it is what it is. It's unfortunate, but at least those people who were hating on how friendly it had gotten, I think at least those
Yeah.
days are far behind us. The Asia Cup, like changing,
Yeah.
giving each other T-shirts and all that. That's all in the past now.
Yeah, in a way that's the only positive you can take out of it, and then these guys maybe um, for all the negativity around it, maybe if it can start a rivalry of words within reason. Obviously, I think it's not the worst thing in the world to have at least some sort of aggression on the field. As I said, that seems to have been lost in most games. Maybe Sri Lanka versus Bangladesh and Pakistan were the only other two where you see some of that. But yeah, overall, I think it's only a shame that the skill level is so different that
It's crazy.
uh,
But there you have it. So now Pakistan are in must-win territory, as they've been so often in their life. This was where we stumbled in 2023. The rebound game. It came quickly against Sri Lanka. We lost that. I think we got to win tomorrow, right?
in Sri Lanka against South Africa.
Sri Lanka Asia Cup. Sri Lanka
23. Oh yeah, Asia Cup,
2023
Asia Cup.
Asia
Yeah,
Cup.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It
yeah,
was the
Asia Cup.
same
Yeah,
quick
yeah, yeah.
succession game.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna
We
not
should have
let
won
it
that game.
happen
We scored.
again.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we're not letting it happen again. So let's see. I'm hopeful that this time will be a first time there will be a three-time India-Pakistan final, and it's the one time that actually the Gulf is so extensive that it probably doesn't have the same meaning as it did before. However, having said that, anything can happen. At least your prediction will not come true. It won't be.
Yeah.
I think that's gone. So let's hope that one of Gully to Gully's predictions comes true. But it requires a solid performance tomorrow. Sri Lanka are still a difficult team to get over the line.
In the fantastic city of Abu Dhabi.
I knew you were going to say that. The local guy is right there, and he will hopefully bring us good luck. Are you going for the
Thank
match
you.
on a
I'm not.
Tuesday?
I was.
No, you're not.
I thought I would have considered going if Pakistan had a close match yesterday, not winning, but if we were close. I had a deal with a friend of mine. Like if Pakistan, if it's a good match, close match, we'll go on Tuesday. We were sitting together watching the match yesterday. And we're like, there's no chance we're going.
All right. Well,
Anyways,
let's see.